How hard did you push it? Till I black out? Yes. Numerous times, yes.
What's happening, Municipals? This is not Big C. This is Ashton, and also not with Big C. Tonight, I'm with Nick, my buddy Nick, who joined us way back when in episode 11, talking about falling in love with golf during the pandemic. And, right when we started off, Nick had just moved to San Diego, had definitely not played golf yet, but he's now been there for a few months, and I thought it'd be a great time. We've been highlighting, obviously, a ton of Bay Area courses, a lot of Portland area courses, now with Chris up there, but we thought that'd be a great time to check in with Nick and also talk about a little bit about the San Diego golf scene. Nick will give us some context, like he's not pounded the pavement, he's not seen everything, he has not played Torrey, gotta have that residence card or else it's not worth it, but thought it'd be a great time to have Nick on to talk a little bit about San Diego public golf, kind of what he's seen. We're not going to use the term hidden gem. That's for you, Matt Cardis, but certainly a course that I think a lot of people know and some other courses that, I don't think people have. So Nick, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, Chief, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. Glad to be back. Appreciate the invite. Want to clarify something real quick in case it was a little confusing. I did, in fact, start playing golf before I moved to San Diego 4 months ago. I think what Ashton was referring to is that I hadn't played golf yet by the first time I was on the podcast. So I've been playing golf for like a year and a half for anybody that needs context and where I'm coming from. So pretty new to the game, but having a lot of fun with it and excited to get in and dig into.
Yeah, and obviously this is an audio medium, but I've never been so excited to talk to someone who has, on the video chat, looks like a slight mullet and an American flag headband. But, we don't talk about, air quotes, real golf on this podcast, but I know all of us are certainly happy to see Xander bring home the gold. So I appreciate you repping, and we'll call you Captain America, because the other person who calls himself Captain America is he who must not be named.
Yeah, the headband is not, in fact, for Xander, although, God bless him for the win. Well done. It's for the U.S. men's national team beating Mexico in the Gold Cup final last night. Big deal. Laughed, I cried, I had a great time. For another subject for another podcast. But, yeah, let's jump in. Where do we start?
Yeah, well, I'd love, Nick, for you to, for context, me and Nick also, we talk every Monday, so this was kind of a great way for us to do this and just record it for posterity's sake. But Nick, I'd love to hear from you on kind of a state of your game, kind of what are you working on? I don't know, just like I talked to Chris about this recently because he's been on kind of such a heater playing so much golf, and I know you have too. I mean, lots of times where you text me and say, hey, can we talk at 9? Because I'm out here kind of daylight chasing. So give me the state of your game and kind of what you're working on and what your goals are.
Yeah, without going into way too much detail, just to set a baseline, I had a 24 handicap when we ended 2020, and I didn't renew because I knew we were going to be leaving Georgia, and I didn't want to deal with a Georgia handicap, and I haven't got one here in California yet. We just had a million things to do, moving into the house and starting new jobs and everything. It's just been way down the list and not something I wanted to pay for immediately. So I have not been tracking my handicap. That said, I think I am a little bit better than 24 right now. Everybody probably says they think they're a little bit better than their handicap. I'm certainly no different. Can't hit a driver to save my life, although recently that's changing a little bit. Started to feel really good around the greens and really good putting, but getting to the greens has been a little tough. Fallen in love with my 3 hybrid. I got this TaylorMade RBZ 3 hybrid that was made in 2012, and I'm looking for the matching 4 and 5 so I can get rid of the 4 and 5 irons out of my bag. I think you've done that, and I think that's the right way to go. So, I'm compressing the ball a lot with some of the clubs like my hybrid and my shorter irons. But I'm struggling to break 90, right? My goal for the summer is to break 90 and haven't done it yet. I've had a few close calls. This summer, my closest to 90 was a 95. I just shot 97 a couple days ago on a pretty tough course. I was actually really happy with that score for me. That's pretty good. But I haven't shot low 90s yet this summer, so that's I don't know. Still to be achieved. But yeah, goal is to break 90, and that's kind of the way I approach my game right now. So anybody who needs context on where I'm coming from and how I play the game, it's, I'm a high handicap.
Who, again, also had basically not picked up a club pre-COVID, so pretty damn good if you ask me. But Nick, I know one of the places you had one of those scares, when you're standing on the 10th tee and your heart was hammering, kind of looking at hoping for that 88, 89 number on your scorecard. And a place actually, back in May during my birthday when I came down and visited you, we got to play is Balboa Park. So I wanted to start there because I know you found some new places recently, but correct me if I'm wrong, that's certainly the meat and potatoes of where you've played most of your golf, again, because you haven't had that residence card, which is why kind of Torrey becomes so a much better deal. So Balboa Park has certainly been your meat and potatoes, right?
Yeah, it definitely has been. I probably haven't played Balboa in 3 or 4 weeks, which is the longest I've gone. I mean, when I moved out here, I was playing Balboa 2 or 3 times a week. So I got to know the course really well, and it's a course that beats you up, man. It's short. I think it's only tips out at like 62 or 6,300. I probably should have looked that up before this. But it's a great muni. I mean, it's owned by the city. It's a Billy Bell design. It's been rerouted a few times since then, so it's kind of a historic Billy Bell thing. But it's a golf course that's in good shape around the greens, which is what matters the most. As we know, tee boxes can be so-so. The fairways can be so-so. Although I think the fairways are pretty good. The bunkers can be a little hit or miss. They're doing some work on some bunkers in the back right now. So they can be a little hit or miss in the bunkers, but the greens are great, and that's really all you can ask from, especially from a muni that offers what it does. Greens are the best. That's not fair to say. They're not the best public greens. The best public greens that I played with you at Robert Trent Jones in Alabama. Any of those courses were the best public greens I've played on. But these are really good. I mean, they're better than I've experienced at places like River Pines in Atlanta that you know. Certainly better than I would imagine most munis. And any muni I played in Atlanta, that's all I can really compare it to. These are a lot better. They're legitimate greens, a little soft, but very consistent. Super consistent. And, I was super impressed the first time I went out and played it, and that's why I kept coming back. I'm happy to talk about the layout or how tight the golf course is, if that's where you want to go with this. But, first impressions on that course are the greens are in great shape. It's a great value. And it's right downtown. I mean, it's in the middle of Balboa Park, which is it's 5 minutes from downtown. It's about an 8-minute drive from my house. I live in North Park. So it's close to me. It's close to the city. It's public, great value, and the greens are in great shape. So it really was, for those reasons, it was the course that I beat up, as you said, when I first moved out here.
Yeah, and Nick, you said it's a great value. So could you tell me a little bit more about like the rates? Because for different people, like cheap or good value means different things. But like, tell me a little bit about the rate.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Should say I'm a budget golfer, so when I say it's great value, that means it's pretty cheap. So for if you have the residence card, anybody that lives here, it's $34 on the weekdays, and weekend it's $42 to walk. And I'm just gonna preface this by saying I walk everywhere, so any numbers I throw at you, they're all walking rates. 34 for residents during the week, 42 on the weekends. It's not that much more expensive for non-residents. I don't have my residence card yet, which is also why I haven't played Torrey. And I don't mind paying these rates. So it's $44 weekday, $56 on the weekend. But the twilight rates are awesome. I mean, you can get twilight rates as a non-resident for $26, 21 if you're 21 if you're a resident. So it's really a great value. And they have not only an 18-hole championship course there, but they also have a 9-hole course. I haven't played that. I've heard it's nice, but I haven't played that either. And they have a driving range. Driving range kind of sucks, but it's there. It's good for warming up. So I think of pretty good value. And again, I can only compare it to places that I've been. River Pines, my home course in Atlanta. We would pay upwards of 50, 60. I think on the weekends, man, it was something like $70 to walk. Maybe it was with a card. Either
Was
way,
it really? I don't think it was that much.
I thought it was pretty
I mean, it
expensive.
wasn't cheap.
Weekend
I mean,
mornings.
because that's kind of after talking to Tron. I mean, public golf in Atlanta is just not cheap. I mean, he mentioned Bobby Jones, which I didn't, I didn't want to jump in, but I was like, dude, Bobby Jones is like, I guess it's a cool idea of a project, but Bobby Jones, as you've told me, is ungodly expensive, especially even the range, right? He's like, it's 100 balls is like north of $20.
Bobby Jones is like boutique golf. It's a fun course, and I love what they did with the property. And if money was no object, I'd play there all the time. It's always backed up, it's always crowded, and it's crazy expensive. Bobby Jones was like $55 for 9 holes. It's only a 9-hole course. Come on, that's ridiculous. Tron's right that they redid it, and it's nice, and it's a better facility. They've got great ranges. They're crazy expensive. I only went there a couple times. Couldn't even tell you what the prices were because I was so put off by them. But anyway, we don't have to get into Atlanta golf, but Balboa's a good deal. I'll talk about another golf course in a little bit that I think is a better deal in San Diego, also a public course. But Balboa, it's got great greens, and I keep coming back to that. But as you know, that's the most important thing. If you have bumpy greens or inconsistent greens, it's not fun. It makes a difficult, frustrating game all the more difficult and frustrating, and not for a good reason. That said, the greens are great. The routing's pretty funky, especially on the front 9, and it's kind of like Mickey Mouse golf. The first maybe 8 holes, 7 or 8 holes. It's as you know, we've played there. Super tight, very tight piece of property. There are some holes like number 4 is just about the worst hole I've ever played in golf. It's a dogleg left uphill, incredibly narrow. You have to hit 100, and from the tips you have to hit a 170-yard tee shot. You can't hit 190 because you hit into the trees or a tree, and you can't hit. If you hit anything less than 170, you're left with a long iron in. If you hit the perfect tee shot, you still have 180 yards to the hole, 160 yards to the hole maybe. I mean, it's a long uphill par 4. I don't even think it's routed that long. It just plays super long because you can't take a big club off the tee. There's shit to the left, shit to the right, and the green is this narrow little thing sitting up on top of the hill, guarded by trees on the right that fall off super steep into this. I guess you could call it a second fairway, but it's really it's this incredible 30-yard pitch shot back onto this bacon strip of a green that if you go long, you're in the shit on the other side of the green from this pitch shot. It's just, I'm probably doing a terrible job explaining it, but it's a horrible hole.
I can tell you from playing there. I mean, Nick told me it was a short course, so I was traveling down from San Francisco, and I know I could have removed my driver head, but I was like, man, just leave my driver at home, hit hybrid off the tee, and I totally understood what you meant, because I think you've described the first hole as the most just this very boring kind of open, not even open, but it's just a very, to quote Big Randy, kind of a very handshake par 4. But then you get up on the next tee box and it's so don't miss left, don't miss right. And the next hole, basically the whole course is don't miss left, don't miss right. And Nick, I think you should share the story on number 4. I believe that's the green they had to move due to a woman suing the city. I think that's the kind of stuff people need to know, because if that's not public golf, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So first time I played the course, I was playing this hole number 4 with the guy, a local who's played there a bunch, and he was telling me the story that it used to be a dead straight par 4, and apparently, it's in Balboa Park, inside the canyon. It's Switzer Canyon in Balboa Park, and there are houses along the canyon. And apparently, it used to be a dead straight par 4, and behind the green, lady had a house, and she didn't like the golf balls that would land in her yard, and so she sued the city to move the hole. And so the city, this was 20, 30 years ago, something like that. City rerouted the hole. I've since learned that there's kind of a second side to that story. So there was a lady who, before they rerouted the hole, had this house behind the hole, behind the green, but she had these dogs. And apparently it was becoming a big liability issue because golfers would lose their balls into her yard, into her backyard. And these two dogs, I think, were like attack golfers. And then golfers were suing her because she had these dogs in her backyard. And then she like countersued the city. And so I think it's the way I first heard the story, it painted this lady in like a very negative light, the most negative light. From a golfer's perspective, certainly a negative light. I think there are two sides to it, and who knows? They basically turned what would have been, I assume, would have been a fine par 4 into just like stupid golf. If it's just dumb. I hate the hole. Nobody likes it. And that's sort of how the front nine is on this course. You can't, like you said, you can't miss left, can't miss right, super tight. And it makes it really hard. I think it's made me a better golfer. It certainly made me think more about how I approach certain tee shots. I typically would only pull driver on the front nine. I typically only pull driver when I'm hitting it well. I'll pull it maybe twice. And I'm happy to hit a hybrid if I need to go long or take a mid iron or something if I need to be in more control. It certainly made me think about my shots more. Than your typical, say, Parkland style course that's a little bit more open, or like a links style course or whatever. This is true canyon, Southern California canyon golf at its most canyon-esque. The front nine is routed through the bottom of the canyon, and the back nine plays up on top, and it has all the pretty views, and it's got more interesting holes in my opinion. But the front nine's tough. Front nine's really hard.
Yeah, Nick, talk about, I forget what hole it is, 7, I think. I mean, there's the par 3 that like could be like, I think you said it's the hardest par 3 in the city. I don't know. I just know that I had I didn't have my kind of new hybrid, but I had my 230 yard hybrid, which up until recently was my longest club pre-driver. And I was just like, I can't get it to that back right flag. Like, this is effectively like a par 3.7, but I mean, that hole's just nuts, right?
Yeah, it's really difficult, especially the way that the hole is shaped. So it's a long par 3. It's number 4 or 5. It's number 6. It's a long par 3, and you're playing from like one rim of the canyon across the canyon to the other rim. So it's forced carry. And I think from the tips, it tips out. It plays like 215, 220 to the middle of the green, usually from the tips, somewhere in that range. It might even be longer. But
I know that day we were playing with a couple guys who had played there quite a bit. They said the tee boxes were as far back as they'd ever seen them, and it was a back right hole location. So I think it was playing like, I mean, granted, to be clear, you do not want to even hit it past the center of the green because you're going to hit it in the canyon. But I think it was like closer to 250 on that day because, again, the tees were way back and the pin was way back. So to your point, probably more 215, 220. But again, if you're just like an average golfer walking up onto that tee, you're probably going to make double or worse.
And I think emphasizing your point, being an average golfer or worse, I'm certainly on the worst side of that category. But typically, high handicappers like myself misses a slice. And for a righty, this hole sets up so terribly for somebody who's a righty and who misses a slice. You can miss left all day. You actually have fairway and tee from number 7 on the left, and there's a big hill. So you can there's a big hill that sort of guards the left side of the green. Not even guards, more just like frames the left side of the green. So, and what I've done and what I've seen a lot of people do is just bang balls into the side of the hill. Oftentimes they'll roll on, like you did, roll on to the green, and you'll end up with a birdie putt. That's honestly, that's almost the ideal play. But it slopes off. It falls off sharply on the right side of the green and falls into the canyon, into the shit. And I've lost a million balls down there because, again, high handicap golfer, my miss is a slice. And as is a lot of people, it just makes that hole so much harder because you absolutely cannot miss right. The whole thing slopes steeply left to right from above on the left to the green, down to the green, and then away into the canyon on the right. So it's really difficult. And I've honestly... recently, if I've been playing, if it's playing super long or whatever, I'll not ashamed in saying I'm just going to lay up. I'm going to hit a 6 iron and then try and chip on and get up and down. And it's also not an easy green. If you're above the hole, you're fucked on this hole. It's a pretty steep back to front green, so you have to stay below the hole. So it's brutal. And that sort of ends the brutal stretch for a while. The holes at Balboa get a lot easier. I think from there on out, there's a par 5, a big, long sidewinder par 5, but lots of room for your tee shot. And then straightaway par 4, number 8. It's a nice, easy par 4, dead straight, just a couple fairway bunkers, and then a relatively straightforward par 3, number 9 to finish things off on the front. Just some bunkers guarding the front of the green, but nothing too crazy there. And again, huge wide open fairway, so if you chunk it, which I happen to do quite often, you end up in the fairway and you have a decent pitch shot. So the rest of the course sort of opens up and you have some interesting holes, but this first number 2 is difficult. It's a sidewinder par 5, can't miss left, can't miss right. Number 3 is difficult. Again, shit left, shit right, a little bit more open. Number 4, crazy narrow, that crazy uphill par 4. Number 5 is like, it's probably the tightest hole I've ever played. You're like shooting down a bowling alley with your tee shot. It's so tight. The fairway is truly no more than like 17 or 20 yards wide. I mean, it's very, very tight. But yeah, the course opens up on the back. You have some gorgeous views, some gorgeous green sites, and some tees as well. So if you big on the gram like Ashton is, you can take some nice pictures and show off to your friends. You get a nice view of the Coronado Bridge and the skyline in the background. So really opens up. There's some fun holes in the back.
You know me, just a big show off. But before we kind of wrap up Balboa, Nick, the 2 other holes that I think are worth quickly running that are very memorable to me, 16, which is just like bone zone, like just perfect execution, and then 18 just because it's like just gigantic hill. So could you kind of highlight those for me?
Yeah, I'll touch on 17 too because it's kind of the opposite of 18. But 16, to your point, bone zone. It comes after 15 as numbers go, and 15 is my favorite hole on the course. It's
this
dead
podcast
flat.
is sponsored by Sesame Street.
It's dead flat, dog leg left. It's beautiful. Eucalyptus trees on both sides, but still plenty of room for tee shots. You take a hybrid off the tee, you have a wedge in. I've birdied that hole more than any other hole in the course. Probably that's probably why I like it so much. But yeah, 16's brutal. It's a long par 5. Apparently, and again, I don't know this full story on this one. Apparently, it used to be a par 4, and they backed it up and turned it into a par 5. Some guy I played with a few weeks ago was telling me, yeah, it used to be my favorite hole in the course. It was a par 4, and then they screwed it up by turning it into a par 5, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. But it's a S-shaped par 5, canyon on the left, highway on the right, road on the right, before the road cuts away, and then you have canyon on the right again. So really, it's like you're playing on a mounded tabletop almost, and the ball, if you miss the fairway, there's not enough rough to hold your ball if it's rolling or bouncing left or right. It's just going to roll straight into the canyon, and you're dead either side. And it's a long par 5. It's a true 3-shot par 5. I've played with some big hitters out there. Never seen anybody even come close. I played with a collegiate golfer, and he went for it in 2. He hit a nice drive, hit a nice 3-wood, and still missed the green short. So it's a long par 5. Again, danger on both sides. And I don't think I've ever even parred that hole. I think I've come close, and maybe I've gotten a bogey once, but it's brutal. I lose. I don't know, more balls on that hole than any other hole in the course, just because it's such a tightrope that you have to walk for 3 shots to advance your ball to the green. Really difficult. And then 17 is this crazy downhill par 3 that it plays like 50 yards downhill. It's crazy steep, crazy downhill. I think the scorecard says it's like 150 yards or something, but it plays like 100 yards. It's ridiculous. So that one's kind of quirky. And then 18, the one that you mentioned, plays dead uphill to the clubhouse from the bottom of the canyon. And it's very tight. You have a row of trees lining the left side of the fairway. And the thing about this one is the fairway gets narrower. It's like a funnel as you get up to the green. So the bigger stick that you pull out of your bag, the less margin of error you have. The problem is that if you play a safer club and go short, this is why this hole is interesting. If you play a safer club and go short, you have a long uphill approach shot, and the elevation change from the tee to the green is probably 60 yards, something like that. I mean, it's a real uphill hole. So it's one of those classic, risk reward holes where you can take your driver, and if you can put it in the fairway, you'll have a wedge in. If you play a 5-iron off the tee, you're going to have another 5-iron in to deal with the distance and the uphill nature of the hole, and it's really tight. So that's another tough one. If you play your tee shot in the fairway, you're usually in good shape, but that's a tough hole as well. And then it's kicking the nuts because you're walking uphill on 18. You just walked an 18-hole canyon course, and then you got to walk uphill from the green on 18 to the parking lot. So it's a brutal finishing hole for that reason alone.
Yeah, and the big thing is I've only played it once, and I think that there are some people who might be at this point who goes, this doesn't sound fun. It really is. I mean, I think that the real challenge is, and it's really fun these days because, to your point, Nick, it is not a long golf course. And I think you were right. I mean, theoretically, I wish I had my driver for a couple holes. But I think the reason, when I was kind of talking to you, we were talking about, the day that you almost broke or got sniffed breaking 90, is I pointed out that, like, breaking 90 out there is a lot harder. Because to your point, yeah, maybe shorter, but, there's a lot of times when the golf course dictates, like, bro, I don't care. You're not going to hit driver here. You're not. There's a lot of times where the course tells you no. And to your point, like, okay, maybe a short hole, but 5-iron is really, really hard. Some of those holes, mini golf courses we play, right? It's like, cool, you just pound driver into the other fairway and hit wedge. I don't even know if there's a hole I can think of where, like, you can pound it in the other fairway. Like, there's always houses or canyons or just something in the way. And so I think it's one of those places where I didn't think if you're going there for, like, a bachelor party or for a weekend, you're probably not going to go out there like, wow, that was super fun. But I think that, like, it's actually a place that again, I've mentioned this before, but one of the things I love most about golf courses is you walk off the course and your brain is like, there's like 6 different things, like, next time I'm going to do this on these different holes. Next time I'm going to miss on that spot, not that spot. And I think that, like, Balboa Park, especially pound for pound when it comes to the overall yardage, it's a true chess match. Like, you cannot overpower that place. It really makes you think. And yeah, I mean, theoretically, I think it's kind of dumb how tight some of the holes are. And to your point, I mean, I know they had to reroute it. Number 4 is a stupid hole. There's some stupid holes out there. But it's also a course that truly makes you hit some really, really, really great golf shots. And also change your strategy, right? I mean, I think that for most golfers, I would say that number 6, that par 3, you should play it as a par 4. Work backwards, right? How can you get yourself on the green below the hole with 2 putts for bogey? That's just what you should do. So I think that it's a real place where it'll really help people get better. Like, I can't wait to get out with you, try to pick a course that's, like, open and lots of options, because I think that, shooting 95 at Balboa, you feel like your kind of lungs are being, like, you're kind of, I don't know the analogy I'm trying to make. It's, to your point, very tight, where I think suffocating, that's the word, that's what happens in your lungs. Yes, suffocating. I think that really helps when you go to a course that's a lot more open. The other thing too, I know you mentioned this 10 minutes ago, but it's super dope to have a course that has a range in the city. I mean, I think a lot of us would love, more short game areas and more ranges. It's also hard in the middle of the city, so I think that even though the range isn't great, really great that they have one. Also know they had a putting green as well. Didn't look great. Also just a fun fact or a note for people. Balboa, once you get to your tee time 30 minutes early, Nick and I we thought booked plenty of time, and we're pulling into the parking lot, and they're going, Bertassi, to be clear, Nick's last name is Bertazzi, but this happens all the time. It's like, Bertassi, final call. We're like, what are you talking about? Like, we had plenty of time. So get there nice and early, pay your very reasonable greens fees, get ready for a workout, and execute some golf shots. But yeah, and then last thing, Nick, talk about like 3 things: amenities, pace of play, and then I think it's also worth mentioning the view from the men's bathroom, which, before all y'all turn off this podcast because you think something weird's coming, it's not. The view, I think you've said, Nick, it's like one of the best views in golf. So hit me with the amenities, pace of play, and then the bathroom view. Oh, don't shrug. He's over there, like, waving his arms around.
I mean, I'm not going to call it the best view in golf, but it is the best bathroom view in golf that I've ever seen.
That's
which is
fair.
Not that, I haven't seen that much, but yeah, it's just gorgeous because it's a similar view that you get to that you get on I think the green on 16 would be one, the tee on 15, the green on 14. You get some really cool views of, again, the Coronado Bridge, the downtown skyline. If you're out there playing golden hour golf, which is gorgeous anywhere. It's just doubly pretty out there, and that's just kind of one of the nice little Easter eggs of this golf course is where the clubhouse is situated. You do have a really nice view of the city, so that's kind of fun. The amenities I can't really speak to that much because I've only played there during COVID times, and because they're a municipal course, they've had some pretty strict COVID regulations. So there is a cafe that I've gotten beers and Gatorades from, but I've never had food from. I see people sitting out in the cafe. It actually overlooks the 18th green of the first tee. I see people eating lunch there all the time. I'm sure it's a nice spot to catch some golf and eat some lunch. Never done that. I know there's an active men's club out there. I've got a buddy who's a part of it, and I know that they do things there as well. There is a real clubhouse. It was built, I don't know when the clubhouse was built, but it's like 1940s. It's old. Some old school pictures and things, black and whites from when the course was open way back when. I think the course was open in the 20s. So, it's pretty bare bones. I mean, the pro shop is super bare bones. They've got a couple of polos on sale, a couple of hats, a couple of t-shirts. That's kind of it. But it does the job. It does the job for municipal course. You're not gonna, it's not gonna be an Augusta National private club level by any means, but it does what you need it to do.
Perfect. And then pace of play.
Yeah, sorry. Pace of play, it's a municipal course. It's hit or miss, right? Depends on when you go. If you go in the afternoon on the weekends, it might take 5 hours. I've played fast rounds there. They've all been in the morning. I've played slow rounds there. They've, by and large, all been in the afternoon, evening. It's kind of typical. I mean, I think when I say fast rounds, I've been done in just over 4 hours, which for public golf is pretty good. When I say slow rounds, a little over 5 hours. It's depends on when you go. I think everybody who's a golfer out there who is listening to this understands when you go matters, and it kind of matters everywhere. They don't have a marshal, they don't have a starter, so you're not going to have anybody out there pushing you along or pushing the group in front of you along. So it really is kind of every man for himself, and it's public course. So you get all kinds of golfers. You get guys who are super into it, know what they're doing, play fast, which is awesome. And you get dudes who are out there really just as an excuse to get drunk with their buddies and that they don't know the pace of play rules. So it's hit or miss.
Yeah, I remember, I think we played first thing in the morning. It was interesting because the people ahead of us were playing, like, they had to have played in just under 3 hours. They were playing so fast. We played in under 4 hours walking on this course, which I can tell you as a walker is solid. And I think we had the old man behind us, like, basically, like, poke us, like, tell us to play faster by hole 3. Which was just weird. I mean, I guess, but to your point, it's when you play, right? The morning crowd tends to be old people who want to motor. But I mean, this isn't an indictment on Balboa Park. It's an indictment on every course that doesn't. But we don't, especially when you got a loudspeaker, we don't need a starter. But can we please, Chris has said this a bunch, can we just give an old man free golf and drive around and just tell people to speed up? Like, hey, don't drop 3 balls. Hey, like, I don't know. Again, it's not a Balboa Park thing. It seems to be everywhere. I played a lot of golf in the last 2 years, and other than River Pines, can't really remember someone checking on you. But perfect. We'll move on then. It's a great place. Go check it out. And the other place too, the other thing, again, for the price, even if you're coming from out of town, we were coming down for my birthday weekend. Not that we were going to break the bank, but it felt pretty nice to have a wonderful 18 holes, lots of city views, and to spend, a very reasonable, I think, like you said, well, we actually played on a Friday, so I think it was like $45 for us. It was wonderful. So Nick, we'll quickly run through, there's 2 executive courses. We're not going to give kind of a full review because, like, to bury the lead, Nick told me going into this, these aren't necessarily places he would suggest that people go check out. But Nick, tell me about Mission Bay and tell me about sounds like it makes me want to drink a beer, Tecolote.
Yeah, it is kind of like a beer. So Mission Bay is actually interesting. It's totally a beginner's course, and it's a beginner's setup. So that's the great thing you can say about Mission Bay. It's, as the name suggests, in Mission Bay. It's sort of in the Pacific Beach area of town. Executive course, it's all par 3s and par 4s. There's not a single bunker on the course. It's entirely set up and designed for beginners. So they actually have a much better driving range, much larger driving range, more active driving range than Balboa. Balboa has like 10 hitting mats on a angle, like it's not flat, is what I'm trying to say, like an angled ground, like it slopes away. If you're a righty, the ball you're hitting is always above your feet at Balboa when you're warming up. Not great, but they have a big practice green, a big short game area with bunkers you can hit out of, and chipping areas, and it's really this is Mission Bay I'm talking about, a golf course designed for beginners that are learning the game or practicing the game. Short course, no bunkers. Every green is super accessible. It's a lot of wedges. You never need to hit a driver. I think there's only 2 par 4s, maybe 3 par 4s in the whole course. It's very, very short, very accessible. It's fun as just like let's go drink a couple beers and have hit some interesting shots. Not interesting, but hit some pitches and putts and hang out for a few hours. It's fine. Tecolote Canyon only played once. It's actually Sam Snead. It's a Sam Snead design back in like the 60s or something. It actually reminds me of an executive style Balboa. It's canyon golf again. This time you're actually down in the canyon the whole time. You're never actually up on top of the canyon. Executive 3s and 4s. I can't remember what I paid. It was like $25 on a Saturday afternoon, I think, something like that. So decent deal to walk. They have some kind of membership club. I don't know much about it. I think you get like for $30 a month or $50 a month, you get a bucket of balls a day and you get a discount on golf. I know just doing internet research when I moved here, that was kind of something that a lot of people suggested as a good deal in the area. Golf course wasn't great. Didn't love the greens. Didn't love the course. Was like in totally nothing better than mediocre shape. I would not be banging down the door to go back there again for the golf. But for the practice, for their buckets and discount thing, maybe. I don't know. If you're in the area and you're looking just to like swing a club for a couple hours, it's there. So.
Yeah, and I feel bad for now saying that about Mission Bay because I feel like we need more places like Mission Bay. We need more places where, Nick's wife's name is Kat, where, Kat can go play and feel comfortable. And to your point, there's definitely times where even me and you, right, if I come down and visit, there's times I want to go hit those shots and go hit cups with you and do a little bit of, a little $5 skins game. But I think it's also, I'm not going to use the term vibe here, but I guess that's adjacent to it of let's bring 4 or 5 clubs or just a few clubs and each have a 6-pack of beer that we're going to drink pretty quickly and just to, have a turn into a putting contest. Like we need more of that. And also too, we all need more practice areas. So, and it sounds like they're similar enough that, it's not fair to say like if you had to divide up 10 rounds between both, you'd pick Mission Bay every time, right? It's more accessible, more fun. Because again,
nine times out of if I have 10 rounds between those 2 courses, 9 of them are going to Mission Bay. Yeah.
Yeah.
The greens are actually in decent shape there. They're decent greens, similar to Balboa's greens. Not as good, but similar.
That's great. And then I think now this is what I'm so curious about. So again, the only time when I've been to San Diego with Nick, we played Balboa. You just mentioned Admiral Baker. So you've told me a very little bit, but I cut you off because I want to hear it live on the pod. Tell me all about Admiral Baker because you seem to really, really like it.
Love it. And I can only say so much. I've only played there 3 times, but it's a fantastic facility. So Admiral Baker is a Navy golf course, and it's open to the public. If you're in the military, you get crazy discounted rates. I played there Saturday afternoon with 3 other guys, one of whom was in the Navy, and Saturday afternoon I paid $44 to walk. The guy in the Navy, I think, paid $25 with his military ID. So it's really a great deal, especially if you're in the Navy. But regardless, if $44 to walk is the top end of your price point, this course blows Balboa Park out of the water. It's cheaper and it's better in every way, truly every way. And minus the views maybe. It's a great deal. And then they also, that's their North course, which is their championship, big boy course. They have a South course, which is sort of their beginner course in the similar vein of Mission Bay. Much easier. It's a lot more boring. The course is in worse shape. I would never play there again just because the North course is so much better and not that much more expensive. So going to stick to talking about the North course, but the South course is their sort of beginner's course. But the North course is great. It's sort of everything that Balboa is not. It's much more open. It's a little bit more traditional parkland in a canyon setting, but its greens are fantastic. They're just as good, every bit as good as Balboa, maybe even better. I mean, really, they're great greens. And I'm going to start my review there just because that's the most important thing. We can play with terrible tee boxes. We can play with patchy fairways. I'm not going to play on a shitty green. It's just not worth my time. As a bad golfer, I can even say that. But the greens are in great shape. It's way more comfy off the tee, so for a high handicapper like me, on most holes, I'm going to have more options, more bailout areas. I'm going to have multiple clubs I can choose from. I'm going to feel more comfortable swinging away with the driver on a lot of holes that I wouldn't necessarily feel as comfortable on in Balboa, for instance. But the best thing about this course, it is truly a real golf course with good golf holes, interesting holes, some of the most interesting holes that I've played in San Diego. But the price point is absolutely unbeatable. $44 for prime time on a Saturday to walk is great. I'll take that every day of the week and twice on Sundays. The best deal, though, is if you can get out at 3 o'clock, you have the super twilight rate. I've only done this during the week. I don't know what the super twilight rate is on the weekend, but during the week, I think I went out on a Wednesday at 3:06, and I paid $25, and I talked to the guy checking me in up front. I was like, man, this is insane. This deal is so good. He's like, yeah, I've been in the golf industry for 30 years, and this is by far and away the best deal I've ever seen. I mean, truly the course is in awesome shape, and for $25, we finished with plenty of daylight. This was a couple weeks ago, so mid-July. Plenty of daylight. I mean, it wasn't like we were sprinting in to finish 18. We could have played 25 holes with the amount of daylight we had left at that point. And just an excellent experience all the way around. For the money, it's a total no-brainer. So yeah, next time you come down, we're not going to play Balboa. We're going to play Admiral Baker. It's easier to get on. Tee times are easier to book, and it's in better shape, and it's a better course, more interesting holes. I can't say enough good things about it. Between the price and the quality of the golf, it's a great facility. And I'm not going to use the word hidden gem, as we've said we wouldn't use, but it is certainly a course that if I was looking for budget golf in San Diego, this would 1,000% be my number one course. And I'd play there if we're playing the game, splitting rounds between Balboa and Admiral Baker. I'd play 8 rounds at Admiral Baker North, and I'd play 2 at Balboa just to slap myself in the face a couple times and get my mind right, so that I get out to Admiral Baker and feel free to swing away a little bit more. So I can go into holes if you like, but I don't know the course as well. But it is awesome, and I can't recommend it enough.
Dude, that's awesome. And I think, very honestly, again, I sort of feel like I have the ghost of Matt Cardis on my shoulder. I feel like, though, that if he were to give a kind of a figurative nod of his head to a hidden gem, it would be this. Because, I know enough. I think just like us listening to all the podcasts, consuming the golf content, I have never heard that name out loud. And I know that just, the other day, someone in our RGC SF chat was saying, hey, I'm going down to San Diego. Where would you suggest y'all play? And there was a whole bunch of courses, and Admiral Baker was not on there. So I think that, again, like hidden gem is sort of you have to put $20 in the cookie jar if you say that. But it definitely feels like a place that it just sounds like it fits all that criteria. And also, too, I think that, one thing we don't always talk about in our course reviews is playability. Because as you said, I think I love the way you put that, kind of getting slapped around. I can definitely see if you have a bad day at Balboa Park, like you're going to be like, I'm going to put the sticks away for 4 or 5 days. Just because, again, you said it so well. It's the opposite, where I love the idea that it's canyon yet open, where you're getting kind of the views and the vistas. But if you blow it left or blow it right, you're not going to be in the canyon and making 12s. That sounds great. And then it seems to be, I know we only have a small sample size, but I love that you're both leading with the greens, and it sounds like down there people are really paying a lot of attention to the greens, because I know the Bay Area is obviously a lot bigger if you kind of consider the entire Bay Area than San Diego proper. But I feel like here it's just, you just never know. Like sometimes you're going to get great greens at places where you never expect it. Sometimes you're going to go to a place and be like, wow, like I just didn't see this coming. So I love kind of the focus on that. You talked about holes. I know you don't know it well, but I would love to just hear about maybe a hole or two, a hole that you feel really either one that you just liked, or two, the one you feel like embodies that. I think you did a really good job of highlighting some of those really, tight, weird holes at Balboa. Really kind of a hole that really emphasizes what you like about, Admiral Baker.
Yeah, that's there are several, and there are some weird holes at Admiral Baker, and actually one of them is probably my favorite. Number two, it's a short par four, and you have a wide fairway, wide open fairway. It's probably 75, 80 yards wide, but you have these ghost trees, and by ghost trees, I mean kind of like dead trees, no leaves. One of them on the far right might have leaves, but these kind of ghost trees that sort of line the fairway maybe 100 yards from the green, and it's a green that's kind of up on a hill a little bit. It's probably 15 yards above the fairway. There's a little ravine in front of it. No water, but a little ravine nonetheless. But these trees kind of fuck with your mind because you can choose to take them on and try and clear them with your drive, and they're really in the ideal landing zone. And I am not a proponent of trees on golf courses. I like open golf courses, but these I think are pretty interesting. Similar to how like maybe the Eisenhower tree was at Augusta, something like that. But you can play to the left and avoid most of the trees and have a better angle on approach to avoid the trees, but the green is sort of angled away from you and it's not as easy to hold your ball from the left. Or you can take the trees on, and if you get through the trees, I think there's like 3 of them there, you have a much better angle to the green. You have a nicer opening to the green, and it's one of those situations where me as a bad golfer, I know if I aim at the tree, I'm not going to hit it, and so I have no fear whatsoever. And maybe that's why I've had success there. I've had a couple of nice holes, a couple of nice scores when I've played there, because again, aim dead straight at the tree, I know I'm not going to hit it, and I never do, and I punch right through, and I always have a nice approach shot in. So that's actually a really interesting one. I love hole number 2 there. It's probably not everybody's go-to answer for that course. I'd be interested polling my friends what they think are the best holes. The other one I want to highlight then would be, I think, man, I'm going to get the number wrong. I think it's 6 or 7. It's a par 3, and it's truly the hardest par 3 I've ever played. And I've played par 3s with island greens. I've played this par 3 at Balboa, number 6, that's ridiculously hard. This one is so much harder. It's just as long, maybe a hair shorter, but it still plays very long. It plays uphill, and the green is sort of crowned, so it falls off on all sides. It's very, very steep, and so if you miss the green, it's a 3-tiered green, so if the pin's in the back and you hit it short, there's no way you're 2-putting. Pin's short and you hit it long, there's no way you're 3-putting. 3-tiered green, back to front, stepping down. And you can see that. It's kind of interesting. It's sort of intimidating because when you're standing on the tee, the green tiers are sort of at your eye level, so you can see visually where they slope up, where they step up. But the green falls away on every side. So if you miss left or right, you have a pitch shot or a chip shot that's 30 yards uphill, and there's bunkers left and right as well. It's brutally hard. I think I've played that hole 3 times. I think I've picked up my ball twice. I think I finished out the hole twice. Finished out the hole once. So really difficult, but it's gorgeous because it's actually the way that the hole is situated. I think it faces west, and they have these palm trees that are behind the hole, behind the green, which are really gorgeous at sunset. I've been out there at sunset once. It's beautiful. So that's another one that's really tough, but kind of fun. When I scored there the first time, I was pretty stoked. I think I got a bogey. I was pretty stoked for the bogey. So, it's a true big boy, real test of golf. It's in great shape. There are some real golf holes out there that are pretty interesting. They make you think about, what shots you're going to hit and how you're going to approach the green. I wouldn't say it's like an architectural wonder by any means, but it is an interesting golf course, and it's one that I look forward to playing more than I look forward to playing Balboa. That's always kind of my go-to. I want to bring it back to the hidden gem thing, and I think that this might actually qualify for the hidden gem status. Gem because it's a good golf course. There are a lot of good golf courses out there, but it actually is kind of hidden because it is a Navy golf course. I think that might intimidate people. I would not have found this golf course on my own. I would not have searched this out and booked a tee time on my own. I would have assumed that I wasn't allowed in. I am certainly not in the military. I would have assumed that this is just for military guys and vets and whatever, and I wouldn't even know how to book a tee time. I had to, when I booked my first tee time there after I'd already played it, you have to go online. You have to create like a government account that you sign in with, and they don't list the greens fees, and it's not easy. I mean, it's like everything that you would expect a government portal to be, government web portal to be. It's like super difficult to actually book a tee time. And for that reason, pace of play is great. I've never had a slow round out there. I've been stuck behind a slow group, and we just played on through them. There was actually a starter there, and they have marshals occasionally. Not every round I've played out there, but occasionally they have marshals out there. And like they told us, hey, if these guys are slow, jump them, no worries. Like just go ahead and play right on through. So pace of play is really good. The price is truly unbeatable for the quality of the golf course. And all you have to do is get over the weirdness that is their online booking system, and just you walk right in there like you own the fucking place because you're an American taxpayer and you kind of do. So, if there's such thing as a hidden gem in the world, it's Admiral Baker North for sure.
That's crazy. Wait, Nick, remind me how you found it then? One of your buddies?
Yeah, buddy I was playing with down here. We've been trying to play different golf courses, and he's been the one booking the rounds, and he just said, hey, we're playing Admiral Baker Saturday. Okay, great. Didn't know anything about it.
Huh, that's awesome. It's also, I think your assumption's right, because I just finished up Tom Coyne's book, Course Called America, and there's a really really special moment where his dad was stationed in San Diego, and one of his big goals was to try to not even play, but just like see the little 9-hole course that his dad kind of fell in love on. And it's like 4 or 5 pages where like he goes up and talks to the guy at the desk, and the guy's like, you're not in the military, you can't get on. And the guy works with him. The guy's like could tell how much it means to him. He like met him at like a gas station and like drove him in, and I mean it was like a production to get Tom in just to see this little 9-hole course. And the guy told him he could stay all day. But the point was, in San Diego, same example where like Tom Coyne as a citizen, it just wasn't for him, wasn't going to happen. And again, just because of his authenticity of his story and wanting to see where his kind of dad picked up the game, let him through. But it's awesome that you can get on there. And to your point, I think that it would scare me a little bit. And actually I know that, there was even a place that I actually have to check with Chris, because there was a course we were trying to play on our Southern California trip. No, it wouldn't have been this, because there was a course where like basically we could not get on in San Diego that's supposed to be sick. So yeah, really interesting. And also, when you first told me, I thought it was just someone being a little cheeky with the name, but I imagine there was probably an Admiral Baker who loved golf. I imagine that's probably what it was, huh?
I don't know if he loved golf, but there's a plaque for him at the clubhouse. In terms of like facilities and shit, they've got big clubhouse. I've never bothered to stick around. It seems like it's a whole veterans group that hangs out there and does their thing. So it is a nice clubhouse. It's big. They've got a real pro shop, plenty of gear and shit if that's your thing.
What is the Admiral Baker logo? It could potentially be sneaky cool. I haven't Googled it. I have no idea.
Truly, it's a who's to say situation. I have no idea.
Yeah. It's either going to be like government and like suck, or it's going to be like low key super cool. I don't know.
I would imagine it's more government suck, but
yeah.
I don't know. But it is if you're in San Diego, that's the course I would recommend people play. Just it's not going to blow anybody away in terms of architecture, but it is good enough architecture to keep you interested. I would honestly, Chief, I would compare it to, and favorably so, I'd compare it to the courses that we played on the Robert Trent Jones Trail. It had a very similar,
especially at that price point.
Feel. Yeah, very similar feel all the way around. I mean, from the quality of the courses to the layout, they're not the greatest golf courses, but they are good. I mean, they're good golf courses. They make you think a little bit. Parkland style. They're both Parkland style courses.
Yeah.
So that would be my comp.
That's awesome. Well, it's a good way to wrap this up. I mean, I don't know if you know the answer, but Nick recently they've moved in. They've purchased a home. They're now San Diego residents. So the natural next question is, when are you going to be getting that residence card?
Dude, it's on the list. It's high on the list. I have to get a driver's license first to qualify for a residence card. I've already looked into it, so I need to figure out a day to take off work and go stand in line at the DMV and get a driver's license, and then I'll get a residence card. So
I hear you. Nick's first night in his house, I called him and I was like, "How was it?" And he said, "Well, we woke up to like hundreds of thousands of ants in the house." So I imagine ants are a bit more important than getting the residence card. But we'll certainly, I'd love to have you back on to talk about both of your Tory experiences when you're able to do that. I would certainly love to get down there and play with you, but that'll be kind of a whole nother pod. So, but thanks for coming on, man. I mean, this is, I think, like I said, just trying to kind of highlight, I mean, for both of me and Chris, San Diego is certainly a wonderful place to go to the beach and, have some fish tacos. People going down there who want to sneak in a round or two. You can't really go wrong, but it sounds like your steer is, Balboa Park for sure, but get your ass out to Admiral Baker.
it's fun. Can't beat it. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Of course. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.